Hey Giles, nice to have you here. You are an Apache CloudStack PMC member and also chairman of the CloudStack European User Group. Can you tell us how you started your engagement with the community?
Yeah, I suppose I first got involved in CloudStack in about 2012, 2013, just after it had come out of the incubator and it became a top-level Apache project. And I'd started my business at the time, ShapeBlue, and we were doing a lot of work with Apache CloudStack. And I found a lot of my team were interacting on a technical level in the CloudStack project. So I started interacting on a sort of less technical level in terms of helping organise events, making suggestions around documentation, almost from a user perspective. And then within a couple of years, I found myself being nominated to be a committer. I think I was the only committer at the time in the project who'd never contributed a line of code, but I'd made a lot of other contributions, then became a PMC member about a year later.
And how would you comment the current state of the CloudStack project? There are some significant changes on the market in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So how is CloudStack positioned now?
CloudStack, we've described it as being boring for about the last 5 years. It's this very reliable, very scalable piece of software that is well past its hype cycle, but very important to a lot of organisations, whether they're service providers or enterprises. Recently, we've seen some massive upsets, if you like, in the virtualization space. So there's a lot of people at the moment thinking about what they're going to do about their virtualization. And what CloudStack does when it's layered in with an alternative hypervisor is provides a lot of rich tooling, as well as its native sort of self-service stuff that it's traditionally used for. So we're seeing right now CloudStack being seen as a virtualization management platform as well as a cloud platform.
And what is the key benefit for the users which CloudStack provides?
Well, I suppose it depends which of those use cases we're talking about. Traditionally with CloudStack we've had sort of two use cases. It's cloud provider, and that's somebody who wants a multi-tenant scalable cloud and also doesn't want to be sort of locked into any particular hypervisor. CloudStack supports a whole range of hypervisors, and that's a very clear use case. When it comes to non-service provider, it's organisations who are wanting to heavily automate, to wanting to remove vendor lock-in also as well. And CloudStack's a sort of foundational layer to a lot of that automation. But in the this year, since we've seen the changes in the virtualization marketplace, people are looking at hypervisors like KVM, for example, which is a great hypervisor, is in use all over the world, but it doesn't really have a lot of rich tooling with it. So people are seeing CloudStack as that tooling. And CloudStack's sort of multi-tenant from the ground up. It gives self-service. So as well as replacing their virtualization layer, they can also bring some of those benefits, the things that CloudStack was originally designed for, into their environments if they've not had them before.
It seems that it's evolving a lot in the year, so it has a steady roadmap which is constantly developing, and new features, rapid new releases. Yeah. Who is actually deciding what will be in the CloudStack roadmap?
Well, that's a great question, because Apache projects, there is no hierarchy in an Apache project. So any contributor, you don't even have to be a committer, but any contributor can contribute code as long as it's done through engagement in the community and contribute code and features to the project. Ultimately, it's the project that decides, and the project being the people who are on the mailing lists. And that's done reasonably organically in most Apache projects.
I think when there is an open source project, it is following a lot of the feature requests of its users and the agenda and roadmap of its users. But you also need to ensure a certain level of innovation, a certain level of new features. Yeah. So how this happens with CloudStack?
Well, yeah, I suppose going back to my previous answer, the thing I didn't mention then is that the CloudStack community is unusual in that it is mainly made up of users of the software. We have no big vendors in Apache CloudStack. We have vendors who have integrations and they come and make contributions, but it's predominantly driven by its users. And it's that community who basically decides how we're going to evolve the technology. But I suppose one of the things to say about CloudStack is it has a reasonably limited scope. It has a tight scope, and we've kept it that way. It could have gone off into the PaaS space. It could have gone off and gone into the container management space and what have you, but we haven't done that, okay? CloudStack supports Kubernetes, and we let Kubernetes do the container stuff. We integrate with all sorts of different things up stack for PaaS. So, you know, the roadmap itself for CloudStack comes from the community, which is ultimately the users.
Indeed, it's quite good. And what about the community and the users? Is the community growing? Do you see any trends there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen steady organic growth for, you know, since the initial hype cycle, which was, you know, 2012, 2013, 2014, that sort of thing. We've seen CloudStack be in the plateau of productivity, but seeing the community just gently growing every year as the user base increase. But in the last 4 or 5 months, we've seen massive spikes. I did some analysis recently of the frequency of mailing list messages across our mailing lists, and we see a step change in the number of people who are now contributing to CloudStack. And that's simply based on the fact more people are downloading it, more people are using it now.
You mentioned that you are the first PMC member who is not actually a technical person, I mean not an engineer or developer. So is the community open for people who are not engineers, and does the community need such people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the focus on any software project is the software, right? It's the people who write the software, and you can argue they're the most important people. And I think in open source communities, that's just extrapolated. You just get, you know, most people are writing code, or they're writing tests, or they're writing documentation. But it's the pieces around the edge that make a really successful community. So, you know, testing, you could argue, is around the edge, documentation, organising conferences, getting people together, making sure the community is collaborating properly. And that's something I think in some open source communities that there's not enough emphasis on is, you know, if a new software engineer turns up into the CloudStack project, they're welcomed with open arms and everybody's immediately got something in common. But if somebody says, hey, I want to help organise the conferences, it's a little bit harder for them to get involved. But it's something,
I agree,
it's something definitely that as a project we should be working on, because it's essential. Unless we do that side of things, people don't know about the software, people can't read about the software, so people are not going to find it.
And there is something interesting. So Apache says community over code. What does this mean? So,
I mean, the ethos is, you know, the community, i.e. the people, their long-term relationships and, you know, and how they collaborate together is more important than getting feature X finished today or tomorrow. So, you know, to give an example, if there's couple of people disagreeing about whether a pull request should be committed or not, let's not fall out about it. It's more important we remain good collaborators, and we can worry about that next time. And I completely agree with that ethos. And that could be extrapolated out to, it's actually more important, us as a group of people are more important than the code base we've got. Going back to your previous point, I think sometimes we do get a little bit too focused on the code and not as focused on the community and the people around it. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Nice to have you, Giles, here today. Where the community can meet you next?
So we've got a CloudStack European User Group meeting. Yvette, you know the date of that.
September.
In September, thank you very much, in Frankfurt, in Germany, which I'm very much looking forward to. And then in November in Madrid, we've got the annual CloudStack Collaboration Conference.
So we invite actually everybody to join and to register for the CloudStack Collaboration Conference in Madrid.
It'd be great to see everybody there.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Giles.
Thank you, Yvette.